Hello and welcome to the podcast by Astitva Prakashan. Today we are joined by Dr. Vipul Mankad for his latest release on When Science Meets the Soul, a doctor's quest for deeper healing. Hello and welcome, sir.
Yeah. Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Sir, I would love to have a little small introduction from your part.
Sure. So I was born in a small town in the state of Gujarat. The name of the town is Viramgam. It had about 30,000 people. And my father was the first medically trained MBBS doctor to come to Viramgam. And so he became very busy. His first wife died, and so my mother was his second wife, and so I grew up in a small town, admiring how people respected my father, and went to the only high school that it had. Uh, the education there was very liberal in that it encouraged students to think on their own and ask questions, which is really what I loved about that school. It wasn't like, cram up this book or work for this test. It was mostly, learn for the love of learning, and that was very good. Uh, I went to Baroda, now called Vadodara, for my science and medical education, and then moved to the United States in 1968. I was trained at Cook County Hospital, New York University, New York, and Cornell Medical Center, which is one of the Ivy League medical schools. So I was very fortunate to have received training in some of the best places. Then I attempted to return to India in 1973, but India was pretty close to any outside influence at that time. Mrs. Indira Gandhi was about to clamp down on the country with the declaration of emergency, and there were strikes in Gujarat, and we could not settle in India. So, with sadness in the heart, returned to USA, and then I pursued academic career, focusing on research, biomedical research, being a physician for children with cancer and blood diseases. So that's the specialty called pediatric hematology oncology. I obtained a large amount of funding for my research, not just my research, but the group that I created of 30 MDs and PhDs. And then soon thereafter, I became a department chair at the University of Kentucky. I built a children's hospital in that city, Lexington, Kentucky. And then with funding from various groups, I worked in the US Senate as an advisor. And then also in the executive branch, the branch that controls the government sponsored health insurance. It's called CMS. And I was a senior medical advisor there. And then after a couple of years, then I started some entrepreneurial activities. So my clinical and academic work came to an end, and I worked on some for-profit ventures, which were very successful. The goal was to reduce the cost of care and improve the quality of healthcare. And so those were very successful. In 2019, all of that was taken over by, acquired by a company, another company. And so then I began writing this book that was published in December of 2025.
Definitely, sir. That's a long journey, and so happy to have you here for a book release. So, sir, starting with what inspired you to write when science meet the soul at this stage of life?
Well, so the journey towards this book really began very early in life. My personal attribute is that every now and then, in a very busy day or a busy month, I step back and take a look at what's going on. What am I doing? Who am I? And that gives me that reflective um, uh, quality of me, allowed me to pursue various ways of arriving at the truth. And uh, and so over the course of time in academic medicine, when I was doing research, there was really no time to write a book such as the one that I just published. But I did write medical textbooks and about 150 scientific papers. So I wrote a lot of scientific material. But after all that ended, like I said, in 2019, this was a time to really reflect on what had gone on in my life and share what I had learned with the society. So that's the it's not an inspiration out of one particular event. It's a lifetime search for truth, both in a scientific as well as spiritual way, and that's the outcome is this book.
Definitely, sir. And sir, as a physician and scientist, what first led you to question who am I?
Well, so the question, who am I or who are you, and what is our relationship between the various beings, and how do we relate to this universe? So, what is the universe made up of? These are fundamental questions of life, right? And over the course of my life, I've had these reflections, and for many years, I pursued vigorous science, almost 40 years of scientific research, where my mindset is find the proof, show me the evidence, measure, analyze. That's what the scientists do. But I also came to understand,
Absolutely.
I came to understand that science requires measurement, and everything in life cannot be measured. For example, we cannot measure love or feelings or consciousness or Atman or Brahman and all the core of our being. We cannot measure that. Now we can measure uh, the behavior or phenomena that is associated with it. So you could say, for example, that if a man and a woman falls in love, then they often spend the life together as a couple. Okay, but that's a behavior. That's a behavior. You can measure it. How many people get married and how many people have children, and what do brothers and sisters do in their love, and parents and children, what's their behavior like if they love each other, right? So, but that's the behavior, but we cannot
Right.
measure the love itself. I can't say that there's 10 grams of love in me for my spouse. I can't say that, right? So in other words, the to do rigorous science, you need measurement, and many attributes of life are not measurable. So then we use the intuitive and spiritual methods, and we have fortunately in our history, Bharatiya history. I prefer to use the word Bharat rather than India, but in Bharatiya history we have a tradition. We have a tradition of pursuing the truth from meditation, from bhakti, devotion, various yogic paths. And so I draw on that to search for the truth in that manner also. So science and spirituality are not antagonistic to each other. They don't oppose each other. They both look for truth in their own way. One does it through measurements and analysis, and the other does it through contemplation and reflection.
Absolutely, sir. That's great. And sir, how do you define the connection between science and spirituality?
As I said, science would look for facts, and it doesn't always know the facts. It's a search for the truth. And so, if, for example, to relate this to our scriptures and religious tradition, if you read in a scriptural text that there is a thousand-headed serpent under the planet Earth,
Yeah.
holding the Earth, okay, Sheshanaga, and it's in Vishnu
Yeah.
Puran, in Bhagavad Puran, in Mahabharata, right? There are statements like that. But the science will tell
Yeah.
you that there are satellites going around the Earth, and there is no thousand-headed serpent. So then, as a scientist,
Definitely.
I reject that statement. But that doesn't mean that I reject the entire tradition. I don't reject everything that is learned over the years. We just so with science, you're able to question what is around you, and then when you have a significant amount of evidence, then you can reject or accept what has been said before. Spirituality is a different way of finding truth. And so you reflect and you meditate and you do various other forms of yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, dhyana yoga, and so on. You do all that. But there also, you can question what other people have said. So, for example, in our Upanishad, the tradition is that there is a dialogue between a guru and a shishya. A guru says something, Shishya can ask a question. And at some point, Guru may even say that this is the level at which I can take you. You need to find another guru because I really do not know the answer to your questions. And this is really what happened to Gautam Buddha. Gautam sought guidance from three or four different well-known gurus, and they all advised him
Yeah.
to pursue the truth in his own way. And he sat under the Bodhi tree and had his own enlightenment. So the point is that we don't, in our traditions, Indian traditions, Bharatiya traditions, we don't accept everything that is said. We are allowed to reflect on it, question it, and find the truth in our own way, and if we can't find it, and you look for guidance, and if one guru is not able to do it, you go to the second guru. One book does not do it, you go to the second book, and so on. So it's a pursuit of truth.
Absolutely, sir. And sir, in your view, what is the biggest misconception people have about identity?
Well, it's external labels in two words. Right? We all, if someone says, "Who are you?" You most likely you will say, "Well, I am a woman who is interviewing authors." Well, that's just your external identity. Black, white, brown, men, women, rich, poor. These are all the descriptors of our body, mind, and behavior. But deep within us, the consciousness that we have within us is same in all of us. The equipment is different, right? And the differences are really minor. If you really look at the genetic difference between a human being and a chimpanzee, 99% similarity between chimpanzees and humans, right? Between
Yeah.
men and women, it's a similar, very little difference. The black and white,
Yeah.
the racial discrimination that we face is less than 1%. You see, so we are
Absolutely.
all much more alike than different. And the reason why it is important to know this is because when you learn about this likeness among us, that we then are much more empathic, much more accepting of the other people. In Upanishad it says, "See the other beings in you, and you in other beings." Right. So that's when you and this is done through science as well as through spirituality. So I think that that's the when you reject the external labels, then you have this understanding, and you then also have a mental balance, because when you describe yourself and you say, well, I'm poor and the other guy is very rich, I have a bicycle and then he's driving a BMW, then there is the tension between the two of you. And so we have all these in our turbulent world, we become stressed out because of the external labels and because of the differences that we see when we really are all alike. And so that if to reach the mental balance, it is important to have this understanding, reject the external labels, and look to the core of your being.
That's extremely thoughtful, sir. And so you speak about pure consciousness. How can someone begin to understand or experience it?
It's a very good question. And it's something that is currently a major debate among the scientists and philosophers. So let's first differentiate between pure consciousness and conscious experience. Okay. So if you say I'm awake, or I'm dreaming, or I'm deep asleep, or I'm running, or I'm walking, or I'm hitting somebody, or I'm defending myself, these are all external behaviors, and these are conscious experiences. You see something with your eyes, with your ear, you hear something with your ears, and you react to the external environment, and because you are conscious. But that is the cause is the consciousness, the effect is the conscious experience or behavior. Right. Now, what Maharishi Patanjali said 2000 years ago in Bharat is that if you withdraw your senses from external environment and still your mind, you still your you calm your mind and remove all the thoughts, then the consciousness has no other way but to be aware of itself. It is no longer interacting with the environment. So that is the pure consciousness, where the consciousness is aware of itself and is not engaged with the outside world. And the calm mind is kind of like a mirror. So a clean mirror is able to see the reflection of consciousness. And so when you meditate, you have this experience of pure consciousness when you still your mind.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, I'm really curious about like I really have a question in my mind for a long time after hearing you. Sir, being over there for so long time, how do you know about India or Bharat or our Upanishads and our writing and our scriptures so much? Like, is there a mentor to you, or who is the person who inspires you?
well, first of all, I am Bharatiya. I was born here. I grew up here, right? And in my childhood, I watched my father work hard. And I read in Gita about karma yoga, and I said, well, that's what my father is doing his karma in the most balanced way, right? And then I also saw my parents involved in bhakti. So I have this bhakti tradition in my persona. from childhood. All right. Now, Gnana Yoga, which is to acquire knowledge, that's a process. So you don't, as a child, you don't know everything. But I I was pretty good in Sanskrit in high school. And through Sanskrit, I learned quite a bit about our tradition, the Hindu tradition, Vedic tradition, and I continued. So many people just say, well, you learned, you passed the test in your high school board exam, you got the Sanskrit out of the way. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
I continued to learn Sanskrit and study Upanishad and Gita and various scriptures in original Sanskrit with commentary and so on throughout my life. So that was the part of the Gnana Yoga. The meditative part came much later. So in the last 30 years or so, I did have a mentor who gave me the knowledge of how to meditate. Then I read books on meditation, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and followed the methods
Okay.
in that book. So over the course of time, I learned to meditate and reach high levels of calmness during meditation. So all of these, Swami Vivekananda described four paths: bhakti, karma, gnana, and dhyana. Okay, these are the four paths. And as I just told you, at different times of my life, each of these came came to me, and I've I can't say that I've finished everything. All right, so it's a journey. I still am pursuing the truth.
That's great, sir. That's absolutely great because I had this question from the beginning, like being over there and knowing so much about Upanishads and what is the inspiration because we live in India, but yet we have a long distance, we can say, with Upanishads and our daily lives.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, thank you so much for that
sure,
words.
sure. Well, what I can also tell you is that just reading the books on Upanishad or Gita, it's not enough. You have to practice in life. So in my book, for example, the chapter 8, I described some patients that I treated. And when I was treating them, I had to depend on or draw from my knowledge of Gita, right? It's the karma yoga that kept me going with the children with cancer. The very first case that I describe is a 12-year-old who was dying of cancer, and I had many questions. Am I really suitable for this work? Should I be doing some other work? What if this child dies? But then you see, the Karma Yoga in Gita says that if you do your duty skillfully and keep your mental balance, you know that you have done everything you could. Use your knowledge, your skills, your compassion, and you do all that, then the results are not up to you. You don't really attach yourself to results. And having this philosophy allowed me to treat that child. And then in the same chapter, I give an example of a child, 1 year old, who I treated for tumor in the chest. Well, the child seemed to do well, and I moved to another location. 30 years later, a woman called me and she said she is married to a patient that I treated 30 years ago. So here was this joy that there is this child who survived. So some children that I treated did not survive, others survived. And in success and failure, to keep mental balance, I was drawing upon karma yoga from Gita. All right. So you see, when you look at me, I don't have a long beard. I can't even grow a decent beard, unfortunately. And and I don't have a turban. So I really can't say that I'm a preacher. I'm not a preacher, right? I'm like you. I'm like most of my readers, right? Struggling with life, uh, uh, following a profession. People maybe lawyers or painters or doctors or accountants, and I'm just like them. But what I've done over my lifetime is to apply the principles of Bharatiya tradition in living out many different parts of my life. And so I'm not trying to preach. What I'm trying to do is to show you what I did. And I hope that my readers will will pursue this in their own way. I don't want them to take what I'm saying for granted. Don't take anyone's statement for granted. Question it and search for your own truth. That's what I'm trying to do through this book.
Absolutely, sir. And so, what is that one message you want your readers to take away from the book?
Well, I think that maybe I preempted your question. As I said,
Yeah,
don't take anybody's word for granted. Don't take any book for granted. Question, question. Now, of course, you always seek the advice of others. You seek guru, and guru will teach you something that that person has done something that you haven't done. Then you learn from the guru, right? But that doesn't mean that in Sanskrit there is a word called andhashraddha. That means don't
yeah,
follow it blindly. You have a right to
yeah.
question it. You have a right to question it. And so throughout this book, what you're going to find is that I have every chapter ends with some questions that the reader can ponder over. Every part,
Okay,
there are three parts of the book. At the end of each part, I have a self assessment tool. So, really, this is a workbook. It's not just my memoir, right? What I'm doing is I'm opening my life, I'm opening my thoughts, I'm opening my philosophy, and then asking the reader some questions that they can ponder on and search for their own truth.
absolutely, sir. And so, while writing, what was the difficult part of the book?
I think that the most difficult part was writing about and leaving India again. All right. So I went to US. I went to US and for training and to return to India. And I must say that my wife, Aparna, who is also a physician, she supported me in my um, my desire to come back to India. I keep my promise to my parents. We had a green card, approved green card application, which we threw away. We said, well, we are going to go back to India and settle. But we could not settle. And, writing about why we could not do so was one of the more difficult parts of the book. What I would say is that, India has been a very open society for thousands of years. We our businessmen went to Mesopotamia, to Egypt. We had Buddhist monks who went to China and Japan, right? We had our kings going to Southeast Asia and Indonesia and so on. We interacted with the world. But in the
Yeah,
last 1300 years or so, India became insular. It became very closed to outside influences. In fact, some of our priests and some of the religious groups would even penalize you if you go outside the country, right? Uh,
yeah,
and and so
absolutely.
we became very closed. And when we returned in 1971, I'm sorry, 1973, we returned to India. India was still very closed. Now it's a very different country now, right? We are a global power. We have the nuclear science, the space science, the IT. We are leading the world in many disciplines, and we are interacting with the world. But that wasn't the India that I returned to in 1973. And it's just the wrong time
Yeah.
for me to bring what I had learned into India, and that didn't happen. So writing about that was tough.
And what was the most, what we can say, the fun part or the your favorite part of the book to write?
Well, you see, I I have a sense of humor, which you may or may not be able to elicit in this interview, but but I don't take myself too seriously. So when you read my book, you're going to find that there are some amusing anecdotes. And so very first day that I traveled from India to US, everything was changing around me, right? Now, having grown up in Viramgam, which is a small town, 1960s India, um, I really didn't have much knowledge of how the Western world worked. So in the airplane, they served me cornflakes. Well, I had never seen cornflakes, so I looked around and I saw that some of the fellow passengers were adding milk to it and then some white powder. So I added salt instead of sugar. And for many months after that, almost 2 years, I just always ate cereals with salt. And people would really wonder why was I doing it. They say, well, this should really go with sugar. But I really got to liking it. And it was just kind of a funny event. So I do think that laughter is one of the good medicines, and so in
Absolutely.
various interweaving this very serious spiritual pursuit for truth and philosophy and so on, I also try to lighten it by sharing some amusing anecdotes at my own expense.
Absolutely, sir. And thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing your insights with us. Your journey behind this book was really amazing, and I really appreciate and I really admire you. So, as I said, that some of my question already show that admiredness because staying outside and yet being so close to India and Bharat and everything. So, yeah, thank you so much, sir. And I
Well,
really look forward to have you here with us again.
thank you, and it's my honor to join you for this podcast, which I hope will reach readers. And I have an appeal for the readers. What I want to say to the readers that if you read my book and you have something that you want to talk to me about, I have a web page. Write to me. All right. Leave a message. I promise that if I'll get back to the readers as soon as I can find some time. And also put your reviews on Amazon, on other Ridsi or wherever, whatever other review sites are there, so that the other readers would benefit from your comments. So I would like my readers to interact with me and with other readers. Thank you so
Absolutely,
much.
sir. Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.